Hello everyone, welcome. In the last lesson, we created a table where we did our min and max transaction limit. So based on our business rule. So for this lesson, we are going to create 3 measures that will help us look at our transaction within a period and group the customer into the transactions band we created in the frequency band table. Let me just take you back to that table and remind you of what is there once more. So we call it frequency band. Okay, you can see, so for customers that are doing 40 transactions and above, so they're excellent customers. While 0 to 9 transactions are poor customers. So now we are going to create a measure that will connect that table to our transactions table. So I'll connect that table to our transactions table. So let's just quickly do that. So first of all, let's see, well, based on our business rule, any customer that does this, all this like 10 to 19 transactions in 60 days is a good customer. While any customer that does 0 to 9 transactions in 60 days is a very poor customer. So, 20 to 29, good customer, 0 to 9, poor customer. So let's create a measure that helps us determine the number of transactions in the last 60 days. So we'll go to measure, new measure. So we can call this transaction or just trans last 60 days. That'll be equal to calculate our transaction count. We want to shift it back by 60 days, comma. Then we can as well bring this, let me bring this down here. Transaction count. Then to shift it back for the past 60 days, we use dates in period. Dates in period. From our max calendar date. So it will ask us which date is our dim date. That is our dim date table. That is where we want to pick the date from. So dim calendar date. Okay. So start date. Our start date will be our max date, because we are taking it backward. So any selected month or any selected month or any selected date shifts it back by 60 days. Max dim calendar date. So let me break this downward. Max dim calendar date, then comma. So number of intervals, we want to take it back by 60 days. We want to take our transactions back by 60 days from the max selected date. That is minus 60 because we are taking it back. And by day. So, yes, just close this, close the calculate. All right. So this will give us transactions in the last 60 days. Let's just test that. Okay. And we want to view this by, since what we're interested in is by customer. So let's put this in a table. This is the total number of transactions in the last 60 days from our max date in the calendar. So let's bring this. Let's go to our customer table for each customer. So that is by customer ID. So customer ID. Okay. So we can now view our total transaction for the past. Let's come to our calendar. Let's introduce a slicer here. Slicer. Just put a particular month. so that we can select the month and it will take us back the last 60 days. Okay, let's say month. Okay, this is our month here. Let's say we select October, for instance. So this takes us to the last 60 days in October. Let's put our normal transaction count so that you will see the difference. So customer transaction count, that is tran count. Okay, it should be in the table. Okay, you can see 18 transactions in the last 30 days, which is October, then 31 transactions in the last 60 days. Okay, this is 479, this 9. So last 60 days, you have more numbers in there. So it works well. So the next thing now is to connect. Let's also bring that our frequency band into this frequency band. So transaction frequency. So if we select this, so it doesn't affect anything here. It doesn't change anything. Yeah, it doesn't. So that is what we are trying to do now. We are trying to put a measure that will cause anything we select here should just filter out the customers that are excellent transactors, poor transactors, very good transactors, and very poor transactors. So that is what we want to achieve now. So achieve that, new measure. So we can call this transaction frequency last 60 days. Frequency last 60 days. Okay, that'll be equal to, we use a variable here, var. We'll use it based on the limits that we've set. Our minimum limit will be equals to mean our frequency band, then mean limit. Pick out the mean limit. We are going to enter another variable, max limit. That will be equal to our max frequency band, max limit. Okay. Then after this, we will now write a measure that calculates the transaction within the last 60 days, then filter it by customer ID. So that will be, let's call it our outcome. So calculate transaction in the last 60 days. Okay, transaction last 60 days, comma. Then we filter. We create a virtual table by using filter and values. Okay, we want to filter our customer ID from a customer table. So if you recall our table functions, this is now implementing, using them to solve real life problems. So customer ID, then we'll now filter again by our minimum and maximum limits. So when our transaction lasts 60 days, that's that same measure. So transaction last 60 days is less than, or no, sorry, is greater than or equal to our variable that we just created, minimum limits, and so and is 2 ampersands for and this same transaction limit is less than or equal to, so that it will just bound those limits. less than or equal to max limit. Okay, so max limit. So we close our brackets, yeah, on filter and on calculate. So they will now say this should return what? Our outcome. Okay, then enter. So this DAX function now enables us to band our result. So let's bring this transaction frequency last 60 days. Let's bring it to this table. Okay, this is the frequency now. So you can see that it returns the same value as last 60 days. But this first last 60 days value cannot filter it. Yeah, but this can filter this. So for example, let's see very good. You can see change. So this picks out only this transaction here. You can see this 31. That's what it picks out for this particular customer. We are looking at very good alone. So this one probably, this 120 will probably fall into excellent because it's greater than 40. So let's see. You can see it falls into excellent and leaves some blank spaces. So let's see very poor. So we can see, we define very poor as 0 to 9. So we can see 1, 8, 3, so and all of those. You can see them. Okay. So that means it works. It works. So the next thing now is to remove our transaction in the last, because we don't really need this anymore in this table. This is filtering, this our slicer is filtering this effectively. So we don't need this anymore. We take it off the table. Last 60 days, we leave the frequency. So now our main goal is to classify these customers into all these excellent and all these frequency bands. So we'll come to our frequency band and put our transaction frequency on the table. There. You can see, for instance, now this 100 is repetitive, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like based on all the parameters that we have. But really, this is falling into very good. Yeah, this falling into very good. So what I will do now is, so one thing, I can either say, how will I solve this now? So such that when it's blank, when transaction frequency last 60 days is blank, so it will not come up here. Then when it's not blank, it comes up. Yeah. So let me try and do that in a measure. A way of doing that is to come here, just come to our filter pane. This is one way. Come to our filter pane, then bring our transaction frequency last 60 days. So this is one way. So we go to our measure. Okay. Transaction frequency last 60 days. We do filter on this visual, put it there. You should show items when value is, you can just do is greater than 0. So we apply that filter. So that will work for us. You can see this 100 is coming up once. But let me try something else. Let me clear this. Let me try something else inside the measure. Okay. What if I say, if is blank, or if this is greater than 0, return all this. So what can I use to do this particular filter? Okay, I think I'll just go with the first one on the filter pane, right? So I don't want to make the formula too complex. So this, if it's greater than 0. So just return. So this is returning 1 per 118. This is very good. So it's returning properly. So the next thing to do, so you want to count this number of customers that falls into very good, how many of them are excellent, and all of those. That is like the next thing to do. But before we do that, let's even see the transaction value in between, maybe in the last 30 days. Let's also group them by this. So transaction frequency. So we use the same measure, transaction frequency value. So we'll copy this, same thing. Transaction frequency value last 30 days. Let's make this 30 days. So because why we are calling this 30 days, because this measure, we are just only going to consider our transaction value, tran value, yeah. Okay, that's all we are going to change. Okay. Per customer, yeah. We are going to bring this right here, for instance. Okay. Transaction value. Okay. Let's see. Tran value. The tran value is supposed to return. Okay, it's tran amount, not tran value. Sorry, tran amount. Okay. Let me see. That measure is tran underscore amount. Let's call this amount. Okay. Okay, yeah. So that is bringing up, so in Naira and yeah, and Kobo. These are tran amount. So this tran count, so we can still leave it there. Tran count last 30 days, tran amount last 30 days, and transaction frequency last 60 days, just to group this. We can bring our tran amount last 30 days here, so that it should just go with the transaction count. So this helps us to know all this. So when we select excellent customer, we see everything related to excellent customers only. So these are all our excellent customers. So another good thing to do is to be able to know how many of your customers are excellent, how many are poor, how many. So just at a glance in a chart or something. So in the next video, we'll be showing this parameter, count of customers that fall into all these bands in a chart. So thank you for watching this lesson. See you in the next lesson.